It's official. It's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics in the second round. I've got a quick early look here at the series, including the one play the Celtics are going to run that's going to really get them the types of shots that could win this series. Plus, the Celtics practice, and they hold these magic meetings that make things go great, except Al Horford doesn't even want to call them meetings. I'll explain it all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your daily routine and your first listen every day. This show is free and available Monday through Friday. Bonus podcasts throughout the playoffs, especially when the Celtics are playing on these Fridays or Saturdays, days that I might not be doing normal podcasts. You're going to get a ton of bonus content during these playoffs. So subscribe. This show is free, available wherever podcasts exist. It's also on YouTube, where we've crossed 5,500 subscriptions on YouTube. So I like that. I like the way this goes. 500 subs per series. So 500 more for the Bucks series, 500 more for the Eastern Conference Finals, 500 more for the NBA Finals, and we're on our way. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, which you can get on my website, johnkaralis.com, for $30, signed, personalized copies. I was also one of the media voters for the Celtics 75th anniversary team. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, and you might be like, "Ooh, John, what's that picture? What's that? It looks a little grainy. Well, what is that?" I forgot my camera. I'm in my alternate studio. I'm recording off of a laptop camera. My apologies. It's not quite as crisp, but that's okay. Sometimes that other camera gets blurry again. Still a work in progress, this whole thing. I'm hoping by the beginning of next season to have a full new actual podcast studio. So this whole kind of dressing up a living room or whatever, that's going to be done. The Locked On Celtics podcast is going to level up next season, and I'm going to have a full studio that I will be doing my podcast from full time, except when I'm on the road and I'm doing the podcasts from the arenas. So looking forward to that. And that's all thanks to you and your support growing this podcast. I'm going to be able to do some, I hope, special things with this podcast. So, okay, let's get to this thing. Let's get to this podcast today. This is the Thursday podcast. By the way, tomorrow, the Friday podcast, crossover podcast with Locked On Bucks. I did the Locked On Nets podcast. You can go bust those guys' chops on their feed. I feel bad for them a little bit, but not really. Where a bunch of Celtics fans went over and just kind of gave them a bunch of crap. You can continue that, whatever. That's fine. But I'm done with the Nets. Now I'm looking forward to Locked On Bucks, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about the Bucks series in the first couple of segments here. Then we'll get to practice later on, those meetings, those players-only meetings that Al Horford just does not even want to call meetings. It's kind of funny. I'll talk about that later on. In the first and second segments, some just thoughts about the initial thoughts here about the Bucks series. Second segment, the one play that I think the Celtics are going to run plenty over and over and over again, variations of this play that are going to get the Celtics the one shot that the Milwaukee Bucks give up a ton. I'm looking forward to this. I hope that they do it. I think that that's going to be the obvious option, and there are just plenty of variations off of it. But first, let's just start with the basics here. The series starts on Sunday at 1 p.m. So Sunday matinee game, Celtics and Bucks at the TD Garden, Sunday at 1. Weird beginning to the series. Normal in Boston, Sunday, Tuesday. And then the Celtics get this 3 days off. So you don't play again until Saturday in Milwaukee. So Sunday, Tuesday, then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. Not the typical mid-series. I was expecting 2 days off. In fact, just to let you in, when I book my road travel going to Milwaukee, I kind of try to guess And I thought it was going to be 2 days off and they'd play Friday and Sunday again, but nope. They want to get that Saturday Saturday ABC game. So I'm guessing it's going to be a Saturday prime time game. And hey, look, it's going to be a great night of basketball. You got Giannis Antetokounmpo, you got the Boston Celtics. The Celtics Nets series was one of the most highly rated first round series in something like 10 years or something for ESPN. The ratings were really, really high for Celtics and Nets. So between Giannis and the Celtics and the big market and all of that, I think they're looking to get a Saturday ratings bonanza is what they're doing. So they're going to give everybody a couple extra days off. That's going to help. Well, it's going to help both teams, but it's going to help the Celtics because you got Al Horford. And I think right away, Al Horford getting those 3 days of kind of rest after the two kind of quick hitters, that's going to be really, really important. And think about this for the Celtics. They've done really well getting that second seed. You get that sweep. So now Celtics off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 full days off. They're going to scrimmage on Thursday. They're going to put in some work. It's not like he's just sitting there laying back, drinking, pina coladas by the pool. He's doing work, but it's a controlled kind of work. And so it's very important to make sure that the work that he's getting is consistent, but also keeping him from just wearing down. And let's face it, Al Horford is one of the most important people in this series because he's going to get a significant amount of time on Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's going to be, I'll get to it in a little bit, but he's going to be a very key player here defensively and offensively. Frankly, he's a very important player in this series. And so that 3 days off is going to be really, really important. Now, after that 3 days off, you go on a normal kind of cadence of the series. It's the Sunday off, Monday, then Wednesday, then Friday, then Sunday. If the series goes 7, which I think you could probably expect this thing to go 6 or 7. I'm sorry. I know that's the boring prediction, but that's what I think it's going to be. Now, it's tough to get a grasp on this series. My initial kind of look at things, you're not going to get much from the. What do you take from the series here? You had no Brook Lopez for any of these games because Brook was out the entire season. So that doesn't show you anything that they've done defensively. I can't look at what they've done defensively against the Celtics and say that gives me any sort of hint. I mean, maybe some of it when Brook would be on the bench, but he's a very important key to what they do. So there's not a ton to glean from that. 2 of Boston's wins came early in the season. 3 of these games were played. The third game was played on Christmas. The Celtics turnaround didn't happen until mid-January and beyond. So we're not even looking at the same Celtics team. And then the fourth game was the game right at the end of the season. And Tatum sat out. And that was just kind of a different look. Now, obviously, that game will probably give us a little bit better kind of sense of what to expect. So that's going to be the game film that I will be looking at a little bit. But I think what you have to look at is more of just generic how the Bucks have played over the past few weeks with Brook Lopez back. But also, the Bucks are playing the same way that they always play. Like, there's no serious wrinkle here. The only wrinkle is going to be that Chris Middleton is out. Very important element here. Chris Middleton being out is super important, obviously, because he's their second best player, third best player. Him being out, and he's going to be reevaluated right about game 2. Now, the 3 days off in that series might help him because you say, hey, look, we're missing, instead of playing Sunday, Tuesday, and then Thursday or Friday, that extra day, hey, maybe he wasn't going to be completely ready on Thursday, but he would be on Saturday. So instead of coming back for game 4, he's coming back for game 3. Possible. Maybe that's a break that Milwaukee's going to catch and have him back for their home games. And then Milwaukee, if you do that, just from Milwaukee's perspective, you say, hey, We didn't have Middleton for the first 2 games, but okay, the home team won and you hold home court. Great. And if you hold home court, then you go to Milwaukee and Middleton comes back. And if they hold home court, then the series is right on its normal pace. And I don't think Bucks fans are too worried about that. All they're worried about is stealing one of those next 2 games in Boston, and having Middleton is a huge reason why that would be possible. So I think that it's possible that Middleton can come back and make an impact and almost make it so it doesn't matter that he missed the first couple of games. However, you don't know that he's going to be ready. MCL strains are just, it's up to the individual's body. Some guys can be ready for game 2. Some guys can be ready for, won't be ready until, 3 weeks from now. It's just the individual thing. That's why with Rob, when it was the meniscus and it was the cartilage, it's just such a different injury. I felt good about, hey, he's going to come back. He's going to be fine. He doesn't have his wind, but his knee feels fine. Middleton's a little bit of a different story because it's structural in the terms of that's the medial collateral ligament. And it's a ligament is what holds the bones together. And you kind of need that. You kind of need that to function up to par. So that affects your explosion. That affects your ability to cut. It's on the outside of the knee. So it impacts your ability to slide defensively. If he's limited at all because of the MCL, then the sliding defensively is going to be a problem. And maybe you do target him because you know that and for a lot of guys, if it's his, whatever knee it is, you go the opposite way. Basically, I think it's his left knee. So he can't push and go to his right. That's going to hurt. So you just drive left on him and you put it to the test. Hit him with picks on that side and see if he can't, put that to the test and see if it'll be a problem, which they'll probably do anyway. Test that knee. Hate to say it, but that's part of basketball. All right. Well, we'll come back with how I think the Celtics defense will look different and the offense will look different. And the one play that I think the Celtics should run over and over and over again to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. First, let's talk about BetOnline, betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting stats, all of your betting information. Head on over there for the latest developments, league reviews, news, including obviously the NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, MMA, whatever sports, there's just plenty of stuff to bet on. Esports, that's something that you can bet on for sure. In-game stuff, which is kind of fun. You can see how a first half performance is going. You can bet on second half numbers, live betting. It's all right there. So head on over to the website today. Use your mobile device. You can learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every single day. Why not make Locked On NBA your second listen? Locked On NBA is a great recap of the night in the league, in depth with our local hosts, rotating crew of hosts for sure. I'm one of the Wednesday hosts. That's right, John, along with Jake Madison, and who does Locked On Pelicans, and he's got a fun team. So we're gonna have some fun there. So check out Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let me just a quick update from practice. Considering that yesterday's podcast was about health concerns, appears that Jaylen Brown's health concerns, there are none. He's fine. He's totally fine. So, that's good. I still think there's some lingering tightness there, but Sunday will be the last game for him fasting. And the good thing is that it's a 1 p.m. game, so he can get a lot of the food and fluids in there before sunrise. So he will have a good reserve heading into the game. And then after that, he's, Ramadan is over and he can be properly hydrated and he can eat and all of that stuff. And maybe some of that tightness will go away and great. So Rob's knee is fine. And that's going to be great because I think the Celtics are going to need both these guys. The Celtics defense is going to look a lot different. It's not going to be quite what it was against Brooklyn. You have a lot of loading up on Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant is a jump shooter and Giannis Antetokounmpo is not a jump shooter. We talked about this yesterday in the podcast. How's that configuration going to look? I'm wondering if Robert Williams starts out on Wesley Matthews. Now, Wesley Matthews was a 34% three-point shooter during the regular season, but he shot about 50% against Chicago. Chicago, not a good defensive team, but if the Celtics are going to leave somebody open, it's going to be Matthews, I think. The way I see it is you match up Smart on Holiday. You got to have somebody on Holiday because he's having a great offensive series or postseason, and you can't just let him just go. So Smart's going to have to check him. Jaylen and Jayson are going to have their wing responsibilities. One of them is going to have to deal with Giannis somehow. I think you have Horford starting on Brook Lopez, and I think Rob starts out on Wes Matthews. And so with Rob starting on Matthews, he gets to roam. And you funnel Giannis away from Matthews. And if you use Al to come up and help, and if he dumps it off to Lopez is not exactly fleet of foot. Rob is there to kind of patrol around the rim, and he can kind of protect against those dump offs. And if Giannis tries to keep going through, then sure, you got him right there at the rim. And if Giannis has to make the long cross-court pass over to Wesley Matthews, then you can still get over somebody. One of the other wings can come over and get him and contest, make that contest strong enough. Almost like, you have to live with something like Ime Udoka had been saying prior to or during the net series. One of these guys is going to get shots. And if it's going to be Matthews, great. If Matthews beats you, if Wesley Matthews beats you in a playoff series, tip your hat. Thank you very much. We tried. That's it. I don't think he's going to beat the Celtics. And that defense is just too good. So that's my guess, is you get a little more traditional or at least back to what the Celtics had been doing for the course of their season and their turnaround. You get a little bit back to the way they had been doing things, the way they had learned things and all of that stuff. So I think that's an important development there. And because they'll be getting Rob back acclimated over the course of these next 4 days now, the Celtics will, I think, be much closer to full speed. Now, it's tough with Rob because he played a couple of games. Very important for him to get those couple of games in and to get that wind back. Ime said at practice on Wednesday, the wind was the real problem. The knee structurally is fine. He feels fine, no pain, but the wind wasn't there. And when the wind is not there and you're just kind of tired, that's when old bad habits start to resurface. That's what we were seeing with Robert Williams. And so I think they'll get him closer to speed. And now that he's back and his knee is fine, you can get some sprints, you can get some pool work in, you can get that heart pumping and get that cardio up. So that's going to be part of the focus. But also, I don't know that in game one, he's going to be ready to play 40 minutes a game. So Daniel Tice is still going to be important. Grant Williams is still going to be important. Their big man rotation is still going to be very important, how they make this work. So I do think that it's super important for them to get Rob in there, get those minutes up and ramp him up, but getting him back in the starting lineup, getting him those minutes to get that cardio back up and just running that with that roamer the way they had been. Rob can pick that back up more quickly than he can pick up, I think, what the Nets game plan was. So that's the Celtics, the way the defense is going to look different. The offense is going to look different because I think this is going to be a much more of a ball moving offense than it was in the Brooklyn series. They did have a bunch of assists. They didn't ISO necessarily the way they used to ISO, but there's still much more isolation, much more mismatch hunting in that net series. So I don't think there's going to be as much mismatch hunting against the Bucks. I think it's going to be a lot more just pick and roll and drive and kick and drive after that. Multiple attacks, multiple kickouts, and just moving that defense and finding a weak spot so they can get some decent looks, trying to pull Brook Lopez around away from the rim and also capitalize on the corner three-pointers that Milwaukee just naturally gives up with their defense. And so here's the one play that the Celtics, I think, will run a bunch in this series. It's the old Spurs hammer play. So it makes sense because Ime Udoka was there in San Antonio where they ran this play a ton, and it's a great play. Now, hard for me to diagram it here on the podcast, but basically what you're looking at is on one side of the floor, if you're looking on the left wing, all right, let's just say Jayson Tatum, look for Jayson Tatum, look for a ball handler on that left wing, look for somebody to come set a pick, look for that ball handler to go baseline, just look for that ball handler on the left side. While that's happening, and sometimes it's on the other side, on one of the wings, while that's happening, just look on the other side of the floor and just watch to see if there's a big down by the baseline and if there's a shooter, a three-point shooter somewhere up around the foul line extended. Opposite the ball, that big will come up, set a back screen. They call it a hammer screen. And that frees up that person, whoever it is, to go down to the corner and catch a pass from that ball handler. So basically on one side of the floor, there's a pick and roll. On the other side of the floor, there's a pick that takes advantage of the help defense. And that pick frees up a guy in the corner. If the configuration is right, there's a fifth guy at the top of the key who can be a shooter. Maybe it is Marcus Smart because he's been shooting well. So if Jayson Tatum, let's say, for example, he can start with the ball in his hand. If he drives and the pick is set correctly on the other side, Jaylen Brown can be the guy in that corner. It could be Marcus Smart. It could be Al Horford in that corner. So any one of those guys, but that's the kind of the configuration that you watch for. The hammer screen, which comes from the baseline up and frees up a guy to go into the corner to catch a pass for a three-point shot. Variations off of that, maybe they sniff out that and the kick out goes to the top of the key. And then because the defense is going to react, you go swing to the wing, swing to the corner, and that's how you get your corner three. The thing about the Milwaukee Bucks defense is they are in tuned to take away the rim. They don't want you getting layups and they don't want you getting free throws. So they are going to, if you get to the rim, use Tatum's ability to get into the paint, use Smart's ability to get into the paint, use Jaylen's ability to get into the paint. One of those guys has to attack and draw guys in. Once that happens, the help sucks in on the other side, and that help is susceptible to screens, a back screen, a hammer screen, something that's going to allow someone on the other side of the floor to get an open look. Is it in the deep corner? Is it up by the break? Wherever it is, there's going to be screens on the backside of the offensive action that free Boston up for three-pointers. And it may just come down to who makes their jump shots. Can the Celtics make their jump shots against the Milwaukee Bucks defense? There will be plenty of corner three-point opportunities for the Celtics. Are we going to see the three-point kiss celebration? Mwah! Send that off after the ball goes in. Are we going to see the Grant Williams that we were talking about, that three celebration? Are we going to see that? Whatever we're going to see. The Celtics have, with that hammer play, there's so many variations. You can even drive down the middle. You can drive baseline. All you're doing, because once you've set that screen on the help defender on the backside, his reaction is going to tell you where to go. And even if it gets to the corner, there are multiple swings. That corner guy can drive after that, and then you can replace on the other side. The guy at the top of the key can kind of like keep hedging the other way and end up in the corner. You can drive it, kick it, and then Tatum, who drove the original way, relocates in the opposite corner where Jaylen was, and eventually the ball goes back to the guy who gave it up originally. You can just keep going on and on and on and on. That ball can move. This is the offense that we need to see against the Milwaukee Bucks. Picks, drives, kicks, multiple attacks. You're going to get open shots. You're going to get open threes against the Milwaukee Bucks. Knock them down, win the series. That's how I think this is going to go. Again, tomorrow, it's going to be a crossover episode with Locked On Bucks. So you don't want to miss that. We'll get the other side. We'll see what we hear from Locked On Bucks, Kane Pittman. That's going to be a good show. All right, up next, more from practice on Wednesday, including Ime Udoka's very smart play to get players-only meetings, but in a good way. All right? That's not easy to get those. When you hear players-only meetings, people go, oh, my God, players-only meeting. No, this is good. This is a good thing. That's coming up after I talk to you about Built Bar. Built Bar, summer is coming, and you're going to need food on the go, whether you're going to the beach, family vacation, throw it in your kid's backpack. They're healthy. They're delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food. With Built Bar, you can have delicious food and your health. So check it out. All you got to do is go to Built.com and order right now. Built Bars and Built Puffs, which are basically protein-infused marshmallows. They're covered in 100% chocolate. So that means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and enjoy it. And if you haven't tried the Built Puffs yet, people are going crazy for that. There's banana cream pie and churro. You basically get a protein bar that tastes like a churro, which is kind of wild. And those are only 140 calories. 140 calories for a protein bar that tastes like a churro. You can sign me up for that. And if that's not enough flavor for you, you might want to try the Mixed Box. Mixed Box comes with 12 flavors of bars and puffs. So check it out. There's something for everyone there. Most of these Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, which is like half of what you get in a candy bar. Plus, candy bars have like tons more sugar. Go to Built.com, get all your favorites, banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, so many more. They're all delicious. They're all coming, there's new flavors coming all the time. Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your order every single time. Every time. Use that promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On Now your first listen or your second listen every day? Nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from the local experts. It's Locked On Now. It's it's free, available wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on YouTube on the Locked On NBA channel. So at Celtics practice, we heard from Ime Udoka. We heard from Al Horford. We heard from Robert Williams. Robert Williams is fine. His knee, like I said before, is fine. He wants to get into the games, and games are basically the only way to get his cardio back up. So he's excited about that. Al Horford spoke a ton and answered a lot of questions, a lot of stuff that we'd heard before. But Ime spoke in one of the things that I thought was super interesting is he said he had monthly players only meetings. And it was usually when you hear players only meeting, there's a context that's like negative. You say, oh no, they had a players only meeting. Oh no. Oh God, what's going on with this team? These players only meetings were set up by the coaches. Coaches would come in. He said, well, we would give some stats, good, bad, whichever they were from the month. We'd say, here's what we have. And then they'd leave. And it's, you guys talk about it. And they'd spend 15 minutes or so talking about it. And coaches would come back in after that and say, all right, what do you got for us? Tell me what you think. Is there something you want to know about yourselves? Is there something you want to say about us and the coaching staff or anything? And that fostered communication. Very slick move by Ime Udoka to get these guys talking to each other. And that's so important. Ime's whole thing, his method of coaching is centered around communication and holding guys accountable. It's, I'm going to set the expectation. I'm going to be direct with you, and you're going to be direct with me. And that's no hard feelings, no nothing. We're just going to talk. And that's something I love because that's how I try to live my life. It's very simple, very direct. If I've got a problem, I'll tell you, look, I hate to say this, but I've got a problem, blah, 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 blah. And then what are we going to do about this? And that person can say whatever he or she wants, and we'll actually have a productive conversation. It's something that I think is a great way to develop strong trust and relationships. And in sports, that's what team chemistry is: strong trust and relationships. So Ime's got these guys in there talking to each other, being real with one another, not taking anything personally, just talk. And the coaches come in and you probably could do XYZ better, and coaches take that to heart. Ime is a really good coach and a really smart leader, and I think a very intuitive leader. I think he just gets it. And I will say this: the difference between Brad Stevens and Ime Udoka. I think Brad Stevens is an amazing head coach, and I think he's great, and his Celtics teams overachieved. And where Ime is different is, I think Brad is a very he's like a great kind of corporate leader, where, and this is why I think he's gonna actually make a really good president of basketball operations, because I think his style, like a lot of the stuff that he talks about, the books that he talks about, the inspirational stuff that he talks about, that's all real stuff. Like, I really think that's great, but it's book stuff, and you apply it, but it's great in an office setting. It's great. And it's great in a basketball setting too, I think, to a degree. And this is where I think the difference between Brad and Ime is really showing itself. Brad takes it to this level it's super high, that had a lot of success at the NBA level. Ime gets this buy-in as quick as he did because he believes in the same concepts. These concepts that Ime is talking about are the same things Brad's been talking about, and the same things that are in these books about leadership and all of that. But Ime has this like innate kind of feeling about it. Ime comes off as he just gets that. No book necessary. And having the cachet of having played certainly is a big step in his favor. But that type of attitude, like, he is just the attitude that he exudes. And some of it is because he used to play, but I think most of it is just as a human being, because of all the work that he's had to do, all of the work that he's had to put in just to succeed, to get to this point, but also to, get to this point in life, forget basketball, just to have that mindset that keeps him going, keeps him grounded, and keeps him kind of motivated. All of that stuff is innate with him. He's learned that stuff. It's a part of his personality, and it comes across as genuine with Ime. So all of these, having these monthly players only meetings makes sense. And there's no book that told him it made sense. He's just like, you know what? These guys need to talk more. Let me put them in a position where they need to talk to each other. Like, it's not just I want to get these guys talking about basketball. It's they're not leading the way they should be leading. They're not talking the way they should be talking. We're going to do monthly meetings where we're going to air some stuff out, and we're going to let this stuff kind of grow naturally. It's a very smart way to do it. Now, it's funny that Al Horford was like, I don't like to use the word meetings. And by calling them meetings, there's like a little, some sort of, I don't know, an implication that something negative. No, players only meetings. No, don't call it that. And he was just like, look, we're basically, whenever we need to say something, we can say it. And when we need to get someplace, we can get there. And that's it. Don't do anything. Don't call it anything else. Don't make it a big thing. It's just us being able to talk and get our stuff done. We're rolling. We're in a good groove. Let's just enjoy this groove. I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that from Al. But at the same time, these are meetings. Like, it's a bunch of coworkers together in a room discussing work stuff. That's a meeting to me. So But whatever Al wants to call him, Al can call him. I think it's a smart move from Ime Udoka. And just another example, this dude is the right coach. A lot of teams going to regret passing on him. Smart guy, but very, he just, he gets it. He gets it at a personal level. And it's not just because he was a player. And maybe a lot of it is because he was the player that he was a role player that had to scrap and fight for every last ounce of a contract. But at the same time, I think this is the type of guy that he is. A fighter, a scrapper. And if he wasn't a basketball guy, I think he would still have this innate ability to lead people. Smart guy. I think the Celtics are lucky to have him. They really are lucky to have him. And I think Brad Stevens is built for, I think he's actually built for that president of basketball operations role. Having gone through this whole season and seeing it and getting it, I think it makes sense. I do think it makes sense. I'll be back tomorrow again with a crossover podcast with the Locked On Bucks, Kane Pittman. It's going to be a fun show, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, bonus podcasts throughout the playoffs. Whenever the Celtics play, there will always be a post-game podcast. I will make sure of it somehow. No matter what, I will find a way. No matter what I lose, whatever breaks, whatever I can do, I will get you a post-game podcast for every game of these playoffs. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast and watch the show on YouTube. Once again, YouTube up past 5,500 subscribers. That's amazing to me. It's awesome. So thank you so much. Let's get it up to 6,000 now. So that I'm basically, history tells me we can get to 6,000 by the end of this series. Got 500 by the end of a sweep. So 6,000, I think, is a fair thing to go for by the end of this series with the Milwaukee Bucks, which I think the Celtics can win. And I'll talk about that a whole lot more tomorrow and beyond here on the Locked On Celtics podcast. So make sure you're subscribed. And if you are subscribed, make sure that you're sharing the podcast. Tell your friends, tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.